glad y'all could be here today. We really appreciate it. And know a lot of you traveled a good distance, so we thank you for being here. I'm just going to briefly introduce the Auburn officials and the city officials who are here, so you'll know those who are here today. And if you have any questions, they will make themselves available afterward, and we will also have several making remarks here. So once we get the planned remarks and we make those introductions, if you have questions later, please know that we'll be around. Okay. First of all, I'd like to welcome the Honorable Bill Ham, Mayor, City of Auburn. Tommy Dawson, Chief Auburn Police. Tom Stouffer, City of Auburn Police. Tom, you that way? Okay. And we have several others from the police department. I'll let you guys introduce them. Debbie Shaw, Vice President, Alumni Affairs. Ainsley Carey, Vice President, Student Affairs. That way. And Gary Keever, many of you probably already know Gary. He's been on with the media. He was all day yesterday. He is just a horticultural expert, professor in horticulture, and he can answer a lot of general questions about the trees. We also have another one of our well-known experts, Stephen Enloe. He's assistant professor of agronomy and soils, and he knows all about the herbicide and can provide some other direction as well. And Bobby Poundstone. Bobby is a president of our Alumni Association and also an attorney. Montgomery, and he traveled in to be here today, so we appreciate that, Bobby. And I thought Lolly Steiner was here, but I didn't see her. Oh, Lolly, you over there? Thank you for being here. And also Virginia Thompson, one of our trustees, is here today. So we're very glad to have you. Mike Clarity, where are you, Mike? Mike's university spokesman, and will also be available afterwards. Let's start off. Debbie, will you come up and say a few words for us?
Good morning and War Eagle. Over 200,000 individuals have graduated from Auburn University, and many more are also considered members of the Auburn family. We've all been hurt by the recent actions on our campus, which have transpired in the last few days in particular, which have caused severe damage to our beloved Toomer's Oaks. Hundreds of alums have called in, emailed, sent text, expressing their shock and their sadness. Thank you to the Auburn family for the outpouring of love that you are showing now during this time of hurt. You truly care about our alma mater. I want to thank Bobby Poundstone for being here, president of the Auburn Alumni Association, an organization 47,000 members strong, for showing his support. Bobby's a third-generation Auburn graduate, came from Montgomery, 95 graduate. Thank you, Bobby, for being here. These trees will likely die, but the Auburn spirit will continue to live on in the hearts of Auburn men and women. The celebrations at Toomer's will continue. Thank you, and War Eagle.
Chief Dawson, you have an announcement to make?
Good morning. First of all, I'd like to thank Auburn University for the support they've given the Auburn Police Division during this time of this investigation. I also would like to name some agencies that assisted us in this investigation, were detrimental in making this case culminate in an arrest this morning. First of all, the Federal Bureau of Investigations, Opelika Office assisted us, the United States Marshal Service, Middle District, the State of Alabama Department of Agriculture and Industries played an integral part in this case, and also the Tallapoosa County Sheriff's Office worked hand in hand with us last night on this case prior to making the arrest. And we're also assisted by the Lee County District Attorney's Office. Sometime back last month in January, we received information that the two oak trees at Toomer's Corner, the one on Magnolia and the one on College Street, had possibly been poisoned with the herbicide. At that time, we began an investigation, and lab results indicated that in fact they had been poisoned, and gave us some other information that I'm not going to really get into right now about the trees being poisoned. And we began the investigation, began trying to track down the person or persons responsible for this. This morning at approximately 1:26 a.m., we took Harvey Updike Jr. into custody for the poisoning of the trees. We charged him with criminal mischief in the first degree and placed him under a $50,000 bond to Lee County Detention Facilities, where he is currently still incarcerated. Any questions from anybody this morning?
When will he have his first appearance in
sometime this morning. I don't know the time. I hadn't got the time from the court yet, but it will be sometime this morning.
Does he have a criminal record?
I don't want to speak to that at this point.
What was his reaction when he was taken into custody?
I really don't want to get into that because I don't want to do anything that's going to jeopardize the investigation, and I don't want to fuel the fires even further. I want to caution all our Auburn fans to act with the class that we always act with. This is not, this is the exception rather than the rule. This is a person who obviously has problems to do something like this. So we want to use caution and let the justice system take its course.
Did the police department have any involvement in the investigation, or did the investigation start before the call to the Paul Pine Bomb?
I'm sorry, ma'am. Could you repeat
Did the
that?
investigation start before the call to the Paul Pine
Don't
Bomb?
want to comment on that either, and I'm not trying to be difficult with you, but we really have to hold it close to the best when we release in cases like this, because we want to be, first of all, sure that we get a conviction in this case.
So how do you know he's connected?
Excuse me?
What led him to?
Like I said, we began an extensive investigation, Sarah, back in last month, and there are several things that I'm not going to mention today that lead us to believe he is the person responsible, and that's why he was arrested this morning at 1:26 a.m.
Where was he arrested? Was it in Dadeville or was it here?
He was actually taken into custody here in Auburn.
Does he have any background in agriculture or anything of the type?
Don't want to speak to that this morning.
Where was he taken into custody?
At the Auburn Police Division.
So did he turn himself in?
Not going to get into that right now.
Do you have to have a license to buy this chemical that he sprayed?
We'll let the experts speak to that, but I understand that you do have to have some type of, it is controlled. It's my understanding.
Is there anyone else you're looking to arrest?
No, ma'am, we're still investigating. We're still wrapping up some loose ends, but at this point we do not anticipate any other arrests. Not saying it won't be, but at this point we're not anticipating any.
Are there any other possible charges that are pending?
Yes, ma'am, there are possible other charges.
Like,
Don't want to comment right now.
so you can't confirm if he was in fact a radio caller?
I do not want to confirm that this morning.
Do you believe he acted alone?
I do believe he acted alone, yes, ma'am.
Do you have an attorney?
I'm sorry?
Do you have an attorney? Does he have representation?
He will at some point. At this point, I don't believe he does. All right, well, thank you.
Thank you, Chief Dawson. Dr. Gouge has been in Washington, D.C. and couldn't be here, but he didn't want, Dr. Gouge, our university president, for those of you who don't know, he did not want to delay on the announcement, and he did want to convey that the Auburn Police Department have been on this from day one, Chief Dawson, and as a matter of fact, when we got the lab results, the final lab results, the university was taking a great deal of action during the intervening week, consulting experts, bringing in materials, but delayed in announcing because we knew the police were doing such a good job and we didn't want to jeopardize the investigation. So Dr. Gouge wanted me to convey that. Does anyone here, do you have any questions for any of our experts? I can invite them to the podium before we stay afterwards. I do apologize. First I wanted to have the mayor say, I know that the mayor had a few things to say, so sorry about that, Mayor.
No problem. Thank you, Deedie. I hope all of you can hear, and I appreciate each of you being here today on behalf of our community and the closeness it shows not only to the Auburn spirit but to the Auburn family at large. So I appreciate you being here today. I want to say how much I appreciate the cooperative effort that we do enjoy between Auburn University and the city of Auburn. I want to thank Chief Dawson and all of those that he has mentioned that have been working so closely with he and his department in bringing this to closure. Now, while the Auburn spirit will remain strong, as was mentioned by Debbie, no question about that, while this incident has happened, and it may be a sad day to some degree for what has happened, there is no doubt in my mind that the Auburn spirit will grow even stronger and the Auburn family even closer. And that means the Auburn community, that means Auburn University, that means everybody associated with the name Auburn. Pretty interesting that the bell would go off at this time. But I want to thank all of you for being here, and I can assure you in my discussions with Dr. Gouge that he is very appreciative as well of our continued collaborative efforts, and they will remain strong and Auburn will remain strong. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor. We'll also add, I just noticed that he came up, Kurt Sasser, our outgoing university student president, and we're happy to have you here, Kurt. And now we'll take any other questions. Anybody have anybody they'd like to address some questions to?
Maybe one of the experts.
Sure, sure. Let me invite Dr. Keever up. Gary's been he'll give you sort of a summary of everything for us.
Did you say and spell your name for us?
Gary Keever, K-E-E, sorry, G-A-R-Y-K-E-E-V-E-R.
And your title?
Professor of Horticulture.
And could you talk to us about exactly the extent of the poison to the trees?
Well, Stephen's probably a better one to address this. He's a herbicide expert, but Stephen, why don't you come up? We'll both talk about this because Stephen is, as I mentioned, is an extension specialist in agronomy and soils, and he has much more experience with the herbicide.
Dr. Enloe, if you go ahead and spell your name as well, and we do have a list with everybody's name spelled out for those of you who want it.
Sure, my name is Stephen Enloe. Stephen spelled with a PH. Last name Enloe, E-N-L-O-E.
And
Assistant Professor, Department of Agronomy and Soils.
what's the timeline of the trees? How much longer will they be here?
Okay, the question is, what's the timeline? How much longer will these trees be here? We don't have a very clear answer on that, and I'll explain why. If the herbicide was indeed put down sometime in the late fall, there's been a number of circumstances that have happened that are going to affect that. Number one, with all the toilet papering of the trees and the subsequent rolling, this herbicide is water soluble and has moved into the soil profile beneath the trees. The live oaks over the cold late fall winter months are basically somewhat slow growing, have not been actively growing, and so this herbicide is really active on plants that are very actively growing. So that as the trees experience these warmer temperatures, there's plenty of good soil moisture there. They will begin to take up the herbicide through the roots. It will be transported up into the trees, to the leaves, where it is active and actively inhibits photosynthesis. Basically, the leaves will then begin to yellow, brown, fall off the tree. Now that doesn't mean they're dead. Oftentimes, many tree species are very robust and will actually leaf out again following an initial uptake of spike ADDF herbicide. Following that leaf out, since spike is residual and persistent within the soil, the plant roots, the tree roots will again take up more spike. It will be transported to the new leaves, and you're likely to see that death cycle all over again. Oftentimes, trees can go through multiple flushes for a period of a few years, depending upon the dose of the spike.
From my understanding, I think there's about a 1 to 2% chance that the trees could survive. Are you now ruling that out? Are we sure that they are in fact going to die? I know that's a loaded question.
It's an emotional question. I always want to hold out hope. Based upon the technical experts I've consulted with around the country, the concentration of spike basically found within the soil would suggest there is a very low probability.
What is the university, if anything, what are they doing to save the trees?
Okay, what is the university doing? Basically, in situations like this, there's a handful of things that can be done. The first thing we've done is take additional soil samples to find out the extent of the spike within the soil. Has it moved out into the landscaping? Has it moved out around the trees where it may be damaging to other vegetation? So we've taken those soil samples to see that. We'll get those back pretty soon.
Should be within 7 to 10
Hopefully within
days.
7 to 10 days. In addition to that, we have acquired activated liquid charcoal, which is used essentially as a sorbent, which will basically bind to the herbicide and will inactivate it. That has been applied to the flower beds around the base of the trees and saturated or soaked in to the soil, definitely beyond below the depth of the herbicide, the soil sampling that we did. So that is currently out there, and we will be looking to do some reapplications adding more liquid activated charcoal.
When did you put that charcoal down?
Yesterday.
Yesterday. How often can you do that?
You want to address that?
There's such a dense matrix of roots within the granite curbing that it would be very difficult to do. To take the soil
Can you
sample.
step up to the mic?
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
The question was, did we consider removing the soil? There's a dense matrix of roots within that granite curbing. And we've got approximately 350 square feet of area within that we poured the activated carbon or charcoal in. To take the soil samples, it was very difficult to even push a probe down in that area because of the density of the roots. Now, there may be ways to remove some of the soil. A lot of people have offered advice. They're very willing to help, anything to save the trees, to increase the chances of survival. One of the people that called me earlier this morning has an excavator vacuum in which a liquid is applied to the root zone, and it uses very powerful suction to remove soil out of the root zone. After things settle down, hopefully later today or tomorrow, we're going to get the experts together. We're going to look at some of these suggestions that people have proposed, and we're going to try to assign merit to them and hopefully be able to take action very quickly. I think that the vacuum, if we are able to take out that soil, would be a very positive thing to do. Now, because the root zone extends well beyond the granite curbing, we would probably have to remove the pavers some distance out from the trees. Really, I wish we had those soil samples back that would give us an idea of how far the herbicide has spread. Then we could move the pavers, and then first we would probably apply that activated carbon to a larger area. Yesterday we put it just within the confines of that bed around each of the trees, but it's very likely that the herbicide has moved beyond that. It's just at this point we don't know how far and in what direction. So those are some of the things that direction that will be taken very soon. Yes, ma'am.
Is there a chance that it could affect the trees beyond Toomer's Corner or any plants beyond?
Yes, it could. If it moves into the landscape, we've got hollies, magnolias, a white oak. If those root zones come in contact with the herbicide, they'll absorb it just like the live oaks have, and there's a very real chance of injury.
And
Is there
with
any
that,
risk to
people-
humans?
No, it's very low.
What's the possibility of the toxins going below the soil into the groundwater, therefore affecting the water
Here,
supply?
we have somebody here who might be able to address that.
Okay.
Better if that will be. As a matter
Okay.
of fact, I have Tom McCauley. Where did Tom
It's right
go?
here.
Tom is in our risk management environmental health area. He might be able to touch on that, and then also maybe Dr. Enloe. But
My name is Tom McCauley. I am last name McCauley. I'm with the Department of Risk Management and Safety with a focus on environmental compliance and responsibility. The question was, what impact would it have on the groundwater potentially?
And then the water supply
Okay.
affecting Auburn citizens.
Okay, so the soils in this general area are very dense. They're generally a silty clay or a clay sand or a clay soil, so it's very dense. So the migration of this material through that clay would be very difficult. But generally, the uppermost aquifer is greater than 5 feet below ground surface. So, but for a drinking water well, a groundwater source for drinking water purposes would be in the depth of 150 to 200 feet for a drinking water well.
So
Very little chance to impact the groundwater for drinking water purposes.
Can someone talk about the license for this poison? Do you need a license? How do you get your hands on this?
Basically, you do not have to have a license to purchase this. It is not a restricted use product here in the state of Alabama.
Even in big quantities?
Yeah, even in, yes. Basically, it's not a widely available product. You wouldn't be able to go to your local box store and buy it. You would need to go to an agricultural cooperative or an actual pesticide distributor to purchase Spike ADDF. So no, there's not a license required for purchase or use.
How expensive is it to buy?
I haven't seen a price list lately. Herbicide prices change quite a bit. It's not extremely cheap. So there's some cost involved. I don't have a figure right now though.
I understand it's not restricted to purchase. However, if folks do go in and purchase it, is there a law? Do you have to register when you? Is there any track record of people who buy this?
No, there wouldn't necessarily be a track record of people who buy it. The label is the law. So the label is a legally binding document, so that anything you do with that herbicide that is not in agreement with what the label directs you to do is a violation of federal law.
And you may not know this, but I understand you said you can go into stores and get it. Can you get it online?
Can you buy it online? I would strongly suspect you could find someone online who would sell it. I don't know that for a fact, but it wouldn't surprise me.
What is it normally used for?
Basically, Spike, ADDF is an herbicide that's typically used for total vegetation control. It's very effective at what it does, and that is to kill most plants. It is utilized widely in rights-of-way situations for tree control, where we can't afford to have trees growing. In industrial situations where they do require bare ground, say around electrical or pumping stations, and along fence rows. In terms of farmstead use, along fence rows would probably be one of the more common uses by the general public or farmers in Alabama.
Can you estimate how much money this?
Would city workers need to have something like this?
Would city workers,
Work, streets?
typically Spike is not utilized in situations where susceptible vegetation that you do not want to injure are. And so city workers would not typically utilize Spike anywhere near sensitive vegetation. The label very clearly states do not do that. There are other products they would use.
Folks, we've got time for about two more
Can I
questions.
make one statement
Yes,
here?
absolutely, Gary. Just do the two more questions, please.
Spike is not a material that's ever been used on this campus by Landscape Services or any other entity. So the samples, the detection of the chemical up here is not an accident it's not there because of anything that might have occurred on campus as a part of routine activity.
If the trees die, are there plans to replace them?
Probably back to me. Huh? A lot of that will be based on what's involved in replacing them. We've certainly had a number of people all over the region, in fact, even the country, tree farmers been calling us and volunteering any help. It's really gratifying to see that. We wanted to get past this first phase, see what the growth of the trees are, and really take a close look at that, and then based on that, hoping for a miracle, but based on that, then we would consult with all the experts and say, is that even feasible due to all the celebrations? If you replant, could a tree even take root? A number of horticultural considerations there, but obviously people are going to want to know that. And on the website that we have at auburn.edu/oaks, we'll be making any updates or announcements to let people know as we make those discussions.
Some folks back here want to know what they can do to help. Maybe not rolling or anything they can do.
We have just been talking about that today. With the president being gone, I certainly don't want to say that we're not going to roll the oaks anymore. And last night, I don't think we could have stopped it if we wanted to. The question has come up a great deal, and actually someone responded, and I think a number of us were amused by it, that is this going to stop the celebrations at Toomer's Corner? And we heard someone say, well, did the Grinch steal Christmas? And no, the celebrations at Toomer's Corner actually existed before the rolling of the tree. Not before the trees, but before they started rolling the trees, they rolled the corner. So there'll be a lot of things we can probably do to make those celebrations continue. And of course, if the advice is that we not roll the trees in order to save them, I imagine members of the Auburn family would honor that.
Down the road, if you guys
One
want
more
to plant,
question.
I know it's hard, but plant new trees, could they grow there?
That is definitely a horticulture. Last question, Gary. We got to get the mayor back.
Spike has a half-life of 12 to 15 months. It's likely to be in the soil for at least 3 to 5 years. And according to the manufacturer, it could inhibit growth for as long as 7 years. If the trees were to die and the decision was made to replant, the soil would be excavated, new soil brought in, and an environment created where trees could grow and thrive.
So they could go, if you guys put new soil in, you could get them sooner than
Absolutely.
7 years.
Absolutely.
That's time, folks.